Testing 1, 2, 3. All right. Everything seems to be operational. Okay, and audio comes through. Wunderbar. All right, so we are on our third Blender challenge. Now, for those that don't quite know what this is just a second. Okay, that's a little bit better. So this is a series of timed challenges to try and create a final product in a very short amount of time. Right now, the average seems to be around 15 minutes to try and get things done, of which I've been keeping some notes along the way. Greetings there, Bastian. How are you doing, sir? So we're going to be making a brand new scene, but unlike the previous time, we're going to be using some elements of this one, namely the camera movement. Now, the final render actually turned out pretty good, and that one's going to be stitched together with the first one, as well as the one that is created tonight. So during this process, I've been learning there's a lot of great shortcuts that can be done. And getting to do an animation from start to finish, even though it's simple, is a good thing for everyone to get a chance to practice on and refine. So, thus, we're going to be opening this up next month. Well, not next month. It's actually going to be a little bit of a delay because next month, end of this month is going to be too chaotic to pull off. So thus it's going to be delayed. A lot of things are getting delayed, by the way. The anniversary stream that is planned for next week is going to be abbreviated. And yeah, I do not like having to delay it. But it will make sense when you see it. Over the last year, I've been working on a project, and I want it to be in a near final state for that, but also because work is a little demanding right now. There's a lot of things that need to be figured out. And so it is something that has been taking up the majority of my efforts through the week. And so I've been trying to change my hours to be able to pull it off. It has been quite the experience. Was at a retirement party for family. Ooh, fancy. Hopefully it was a wonderful time for folks and the beginning of new dreams for them. We never truly retire. We just move on to the next big events in our life. New plans, new dreams, things like that. Okay, so we're going to also be trying to do a little bit of a character. I've done 2 characters since the last the last challenge, and I think I'm ready to give a character another go. And this one's going to be simple-ish, and it will hopefully be relatively straightforward. We will see. I want to give it another shot. Okay, so for the first one, we did a donut, we did coffee, we did a table, we did chairs and window. And this one, what you see on screen is what was done last time. This one incorporated 2 cups, 2 different types of cups, a shelf, a simple room, some background, and a bird that got added in. It's a very simple rig. But it actually looked pretty decent when it was finally rendered. Again, of which you will get to see that when I stitch all these things together in preparation for the next event. But I want to try and keep it with this theme. I want to try and slowly move on to different areas. I don't want it to be too jarring. So the last 2 times has been, 1, a coffee shop. Next, we have a store where there's coffee being sold. Now we're on to the next one. Question is, what are the elements going to be? Bastion says, other than avoiding a certain part of the family, it was all good. Haven't seen the family for over 10 years. Indeed. You know, it's amazing the value that family has, and the older we get, the more we start to realize just how impactful that all of our families are. What is that? Huh, there's a weird particle right there. All right. So going to clear out the scene. This has already been saved as a new file, and then get ready for the challenge to commence. So this is that's interesting. All right. So there are some other things I want to do with this challenge for the future. It won't happen for the next one when we do our first group. When I start reaching out to folks to participate, but it'll probably happen along the 3rd or 4th. And one of them is going to be having input ideas. People will get the chance to offer suggestions for what they want to see built. And then we got to try and figure out how to work it into the scene. Now, there's one thing I want to address, and that is something I saw recently. It has to do with AI. I know, amazing. It showed a 3D model being created of characters that were just 2D. AI created, I'm guessing. AI created 2D images, which they could then convert into 3D. It seemed like it worked, but when you actually investigated it, there was a couple of problems. Now, it makes it look good for social media. Just, oh, look, it can create 3D. It couldn't. Right now, the jobs of artists are still safe. Companies, on the other hand, they're the ones that are ruining the industry. AI is a problem, yes, but it's more that the people that want AI are the problem. I don't notice a whole lot of people adopting AI, thankfully. And those that do are usually of a certain type of people. Usually. And I know it'd be a bit insulting if they were to hear that and say, how dare you insinuate that we're somehow a type of people. But they are. And I'm still trying to figure out what is like the telltale signs. But almost every one of them is single. almost. Or they don't believe in tradition. That's the other thing. Of which I'm not going to take their advice when it comes to AI. Now, there are a couple outliers. I do believe that. I have seen that. But typically there is a trend. So I will always create stuff with my hands. I do not want to be reliant upon a machine. And so thus the Blender Challenge the hope is to make it so that other people start to understand how easy it is to try and do some of the stuff. It's not super difficult. You get a chance to do it. And part of the challenge here is to try and do things that anyone's machine could do. These scenes are very, very simple. Speaking of which, now we got to figure out what is going to go into this scene. Okay, stand by just a second as I double check my notes for this. Next, when we finally do have the anniversary stream for Castercraft, there are some really, really cool things that you'll get to see. Silverado's been overhauled, as has the Castercraft website. No, they're not live yet. They'll go live soon. But it's going to be as big of a leap as when the site got launched. There's some really cool elements to it. And what I think is probably going to end up happening is this summer is going to be about populating all of that with content. You'll get to see what that stuff is before long. I mean, if you look on the website, you'll find some kind of hints, but there's a lot of other things that are not on there, and that's the stuff I've been working on behind the scenes. By the way, you'll probably notice that I don't do a whole lot of sci-fi stuff in my artwork. And you might be wondering why. I very much have I know I have a style to my artwork, and it took me a while to kind of realize what it is. But I noticed that I don't really lean into sci-fi a whole lot. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have ideas, I don't have stories for them or whatnot. but I've been avoiding it because it's the easiest stuff to make. But that being said, because it's easy, it doesn't mean that's bad. It just means that I wanted to challenge myself to go one step above and see if there is a way to make it more real, so that way when I need to tone it back, then it becomes a lot more manageable. All right, this should be enough to try and select from. Okay. So, to keep in line with this, we'll also, here we go. Okay. So I'm going to quickly block out the scene. Now, this is an experiment that kind of helps to do better for planning. I don't know if I'll incorporate this into what other people will do during these challenges in the future, but I want to try it because I think that it has merit. So I'm going to start the timer. We're going to give myself 15 minutes, which has kind of been the trend so far. I have to design this shot within 15 minutes. Begin. Now, this doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be enough to where you get the look and the feel of it. I'm also keeping these fairly simple sort of scenes just because I want not to create anxiety for people and when they do eventually start wanting to participate. It's designed to try and make it seem as possible as can be. I want them to not get scared of doing the task. I want them to find that they can do it, that they don't have to be freaked out by a challenge. All right, so next part of this. Sticking with the theme, but now we got to figure out how to get these shots to move on to the next area. So the idea is that we're moving through a world. Start off at a table, we go to the shop, and now we need to leave that area. So thus, we're going to have a small village in the background. We've just left the shop. I've been experimenting with new naming conventions, and I gotta say, it makes sense to use symbols when you're doing it, but I'm not a super keen on doing some of those things. So like I'm using an underscore to lead with it. Other times I use an exclamation point. If it's an underscore, what I'm trying to do for this is show that this is a stand-in. Because I always type out stand in, but I need something to identify it. I'm looking at the keyboard, and this just makes sense for right now. I will probably change it in the future. You know, one of the first scenes I had to do from start to finish when I was in school was actually a scene kind of similar to this. Now, when I did it though, I did not know how best to pull it off, and so thus it took me days to pull off. Hopefully it does not take days for stuff like this into the future. But anyway, the possibility is always there. So as we come across to here, what needs to happen next? Now we could throw in our character here, or we could have a character poke around, like up from behind here a little bit. That's probably going to be easiest. Have like an animal that reaches up, that sort of thing. Maybe a duck. Could be. Actually, you know what? That would be a fairly easy thing to pull off. That would be an easy thing. Okay, let's put it in here. So the character reaches up. We'll say it's a duck for right now, because maybe it's a goose. A swan would probably be easier for the length of head. Are fairly easy as a whole. So character reaches up from here. Wants the sandwich, then it bites it, then runs off screen. Maybe that'll work. We've already introduced a bird. The second bird shouldn't be too terribly difficult. So the scene opens up. We see the little town. We see food on it. And then the bird grabs the sandwich and runs off. Okay, so that will work. I'm not super happy with the idea. I would wish I had a better idea, but alas, I've been spending all my planning sessions and work on other projects, and so thus my focus on this hasn't been more than kind of what you're seeing right now, trying to plan it. But I'm also showing that you can do this on the fly. But that's not the main point that I kind of want to get across, so oh well. There we go, we've blocked it out. It's not perfect, never is. But this is our plan. So the bird will be the last part. Yes, okay, so I did that with under 15 minutes, and honestly I had a little bit extra time, but we'll call it good at that. All right, so put that into the notes. All right, so the first thing we got to do is make an apple. All right, let me pull up a reference. Of course, it's going to give me a bunch of Macintosh stuff. Here we go. It's always good to have reference material. Okay, beginning this in 3, 2, 1, go. So apples have a bit of support from the pinch signs because it creates a flat surface for it to sit upon. Isn't that interesting? An apple would be perfectly suited to sit on a counter, and it grew up in a tree. That to me is proof of, honestly, design. That is where you start to realize, you know what? This didn't happen by random chance. This thing was created. It was designed to be this way. I think that God put stuff like that out there so that we would be less likely to turn from him. But ironically enough, human beings will inevitably want to try and rebel. Random detail to it. That way we can have multiple apples. There's something I've been observing over the last few weeks. Is that just me? Or does it feel like the world of streaming has gotten eerily quiet? It's probably mostly me, honestly, because I'm not as tuned in as I once was. But I've been noticing just a lot of problems arising. Now, I don't say that with any sort of glee. I think that there is actually some problems when I'm talking about that. But it is something where I am noticing the trend. Now you all know that I've had a bit of a pessimistic view of the streaming world. Ever since I got involved, I noticed a lot of problems, and those problems have not subsided. If anything, they've gotten worse as time has gone on. But the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because I'm noticing a level of kind of acceptance that's been going around. A realization that the streaming years are over. The money isn't there. That's one of the biggest reasons. But there are other reasons too. And I think a lot of it has to do with our culture. I've heard more people start to criticize the world of streaming than basically any time in the last 10, 15 years. But I do believe the biggest reason is that the money is gone. The money is no longer there in the way that it used to be. Emphasis on how it used to be. Because for streaming really to work, at least for most people, you need to make a certain level of income. Thus, it drew a whole bunch of people that were very keen on getting rich quick. When that didn't happen, they got a bit frustrated. They complained about it a lot on social media. And in the end, they started to just argue that, oh, well, I'm being shadow banned. Now, there's occasions where shadow banning does happen. I do believe it, especially when it comes to really, really sensitive stuff. But see, gamers are what make up the majority of the streamers. And their edginess is not what usually is the biggest problem. It's actually when you challenge something on a moral and ethical ground that you really get yourself in trouble. So I don't think it's that they're getting shadow banned for stuff like that. I think it's that the world of streaming is finally starting to reflect the economy that we're in. That's what I think is going on. I think our economy is in a very, very bad way. And so to get second count. Just saying. So to get a culture, and we're going to call it good, a culture that can do streaming, you really do need to have it where people have spendable cash, extra cash to be able to just throw at streamers. That no longer is happening. Now, thankfully, I never got addicted to it. But I do know some people that are very addicted to it. They don't know what to do with themselves if they don't get a certain level of income. Because for a lot of people, streaming has become their form of revenue. Well, thankfully, it was never my main form of revenue. I gave it a try. I wanted to see what would happen, and it failed spectacularly for good reason. But what do you do when other people start to realize, dang, this is not working? That's where I think that the streaming world is way worse than we think, because those people have all secretly behind the scenes been saying, yeah, I did this for the money to begin with, and so if the money's not there, I'm out. But if that is the case, what is next? Will all this stuff just kind of cease to exist? Will the streaming world just fade into obscurity? I don't know. I kind of hope so, honestly. If I'm going to be completely honest, I hope it does. Because I don't like the wait a minute. I don't like how repetitive it's gotten. People get on to the same games and say over and over again the same catchphrases, for example. Trivialness. A thought that somehow what you're doing is deep and meaningful. It's not a problem when you're in good times. We're no longer in good times, though. We're in challenging times. And so thus the world of streaming, which has benefited from good times, is now going to start becoming difficult. It's going to start reflecting the world that we're in, the real world that we're in. That timer snuck up on me. Okay, well, I was in texturing anyway, and then just decided to go back and fix this. Two different stems, okay. There we go. 3 apples. Let's go back to our set layout. Oh, wait. There we go. Now it's stationary. So we gotta move this down to different collections. Apple 1, 2, and 3. All right, you go into Apple 1. You go into Apple 2. And you go into Apple 3. And you stay inside of Apple. There we go. What would you do, though, if you had invested everything into the world of streaming with the thought that somehow you were going to be the next famous online personality. What would you do if you invested that much time and effort and then you found out that it wasn't going to work? Would you bail like so many others? Would you look at yourself in the mirror and say, I need to wake up, I need to move on, find new things to do, new horizons to conquer? Or would you say, or would you invest everything to try and rekindle it? Start anew, rebuild yourself. I've seen some people online doing that. They're trying to recreate themselves. Like, oh, I miss the glory years that I had on the platform. I need to change. I need to go back. I need to rekindle that self that I had. I don't see a whole lot of people that are looking at themselves and saying, you know what, I need to move on. I need to find something different. Now, ever since I got started, I've been saying I needed to find something different, but it was the world of art and animation that I wanted to go into. It wasn't trying to shift careers majorly. It was more like just trying to refocus on some of the things I had. Let me put this into new area here. We're going to call this Matic. There we go, apples. And that will be reorganized as you press on. We'll do the text drop later on. So there's a streamer that I've been watching during my time away from streaming. And he's been a fascinating guy to study. I'm not studying him for inspiration on how I need to kind of press on. I'm more like trying to study the mindset of the streamers out there. The ones that are trying to rekindle themselves. And this guy has, he was really, really big during the pandemic. And he since has become not so big in recent years. And he's tried to rebuild himself, and it's not quite what it used to be. In fact, let me actually just double check this before I make this claim. Yeah. Okay. The viewership for this guy went from thousands per video to hundreds. Hundreds at best. A lot of them are below 100. It's a devastating fall. Now, in his defense, he's pressing on. He's trying to figure out how to make it work. But it's not quite there. Still, he's trying to make it work. And alas, I think he's kind of a case study for why this whole industry is collapsing. Because he's very much dependent upon advertisers. He made hundreds of thousands of dollars, if I remember right, during the pandemic. I think he's making thousands now, which is still decent. But compared to the hundreds of thousands, that's nothing. That's a top tier streamer. And then you see people with hundreds, and they think that somehow they're going to get to the big leagues. Like, no, the big leagues are collapsing. Everything's collapsing in this space. Don't assume that it's going to be there. Do what you can with the time that you have in your field, in your family, in your community. Don't go chasing after the dreams of a actor, actress, streamer, whatnot. Those people are not happy. And that's the other part of this guy. He's a case study for depression. You know, I would love a chance to talk with him. I wouldn't even tell anybody that I talked with him if that was the case. But I would love to talk with him and try to understand his story. I've done that for a couple of big names. It's always interesting. It's always depressing. Especially when you get past like all the kitsch stuff that they put out there, all the repeatable stuff that they start off all their streams with or whatnot, or the stories that they tell. I want to get to the deeper stories, the ones that really irked them, that formed them. But you're not going to find that in most occasions. When you do come across it, it is indeed something you want to be able to watch and learn from and say, okay, I want to try and figure out how this person became this way. So you yourself don't go down that path, or you can warn others that are starting to go down that path. All right. Oh, by the way, before we go any further, I actually have been testing out t-shirts. And you know what? They are long lasting. I think things have been figured out. So, very soon I'll show you the screen printer. But the paint, at least, is working. It is drying properly. It takes like 2 or 3 washes for the paint to finally become soft enough that it just it flows with the fabric. We're not quite there. I don't know how to like make that any better, but at least right now it is looking very promising. So when I start streaming, I should prepare to scavenge the ruined remains of it. Yeah, something like that. There's a kid that I came across. He thought for certain he was going to become big stuff. He was trying to get shout outs from everybody. He was desperate for clout. He was chasing it. And what was sad is that he was finding success. And then suddenly, all in a moment, he realized it was all fake. And he thought, well, I need to just try harder. He didn't realize that maybe he was in the wrong. Maybe he needed to move on to something different. But anyway, I'm glad that it's collapsing for many reasons. The streaming world got way out of hand. Still is out of hand. Now, there's a time and a place for streaming, but I would treat it more like a radio. Don't try and do the kitsch stuff, trying to go out and hype people up for playing a game, for example. That market's saturated, and it's only going to get worse. If you treat it like a radio, or like just old-fashioned television, I think you'll find a lot better success. But yeah, the world of streaming is collapsing primarily because of the revenue. The revenue stream is gone. And if you haven't seen, oh, this is cool. Now, the tariffs are a hot topic for a lot of people. Temu is dead. Temu is not going to survive this. I'm so glad. Temu was getting out of control. And so this kills Temu. But now that means they can't advertise. That means a lot of people that were reliant upon that revenue is gone. Streaming might make a comeback in about 10 years. But between now and then, it's going to be tough. And it's not going to be like the same streaming that it used to be. It's going to be endorsed, highly produced, most likely. Maybe there will be a couple of random people that just kind of do it on the fly. Who knows? But I'm not entirely certain that's really going to ever get back to what it used to be. I think people that have and are making content on YouTube and other sites get consistent viewers. So that once was the case. Almost every streamer that I've watched, every content creator, he says that their views have gone down. And we're talking a massive amount. There's some people, they've seen a 90% drop in the last year. There's some people that have only received a 10% drop. The bigger creators are the ones that have felt the most pain. Smaller ones, not so much. Bigger ones, yeah, big problem. I need to get back into videos again, but better the quality of the videos. Well, hopefully it goes well, Bastion. It is always good to learn a skill. And videos are a skill that is going to be around for a while longer, thankfully. Technically always be around, but at least without steep competition. Okay. Creating a bowl. And now we're going to change this one up because we don't need 10 minutes for it. We don't need 15 minutes. We need 10 minutes. If that. I'm going to make it a fancier bowl. 3, 2, 1, go. I think that one of the things that needs to probably happen for the world of video creation to try and help salvage the industry, there needs to be a focus on making content that is meaningful. Now, there are some people that are doing meaningful stuff, but there's a lot of nonsense out there. It makes it really hard to compete. The AI dribble out there is a good example. It is so bad. And yet kids are watching it. Like, I saw a video, it was so sad. It was AI nonsense, and the kid had their eyes glued to the television. And people are like, hey, well, maybe this is the future. I'm like, no, folks, this is bad. You don't want a kid addicted to slop like that. I mean, it may seem nice. It's like, oh, well, we need to make money. No, not at the expense of a kid. If you need people to watch dribble like that for you to find success, then you should not be operating. CoComelon needs to go under, and ones like it. And anything using AI needs to go under. It is so bad. Ghibli AI trend was terrible. Yeah, and it's still going. Shame on the people that are doing it. And they act like somehow they're being noble about it. But if you listen to their rhetoric, they're not doing this because they love the product. They're not doing it because they love the Ghibli art. They're doing it because they want money. They don't care about the art. That's why they do so many very inappropriate stuff. Oh, that's the other thing that's killing the streaming industry. Inappropriate content. Oh my goodness, it is out of control. The industry will die if it does not start to crack down on that stuff. You can't have people that are flooding Instagram with Disney princesses in inappropriate attire. You can't have ones where people are doing horrible, atrocious acts of debauchery and violence with Ghibli art. You can't have people trying to make a horribly racist statement and hiding it in AI animations. Some of that stuff is just dark beyond dark. And honestly, the more that you start to see it in our culture, you're gonna a lot of the people that are on the fence about it, they're like, oh well, it's just a personal preference, so you can't be a hater on it. Those people are short-sighted, and I'm not exaggerating on that. These people have no concept of future consequences. Let me ask you this question. Have you ever gone hiking before? I'm using this because it's a little bit less common for this example, other than the one that I normally would use for this. If you've been hiking before, you know there is some rules that you need to follow, and you don't really have to think that hard about why the rules matter. Now, what are some of these rules? Well, one of them is that when you are far away from help, you don't take unnecessary risks. Doing a backflip off of a cliff into a little pool may look good on an Instagram reel. But if you mess up and and you've been hiking out in the middle of the wilderness and you think, oh, I want to do this for something trendy, you're not thinking about what the future is going to be like. You could be doing your very last act on this earth. Because if you get injured, who's going to come and save you? Cause there are some things that I've seen people do that they say afterwards, yeah, that was stupid. You're like, okay, well, are you never going to do that stupid thing again? Like, oh no, I'm going to do it again. There was one guy that I knew, a very, very, very skilled athletic man. We're talking one of the most athletic men I have met. And what was fascinating about him was he was capable of some very extreme survival stuff. Nothing fazed this guy. One day, he went on a trip, a hiking trip, and he got back, and he was shaken. He asked, "What's the matter?" And he mentioned that he almost died, and that in that moment, his life changed, and suddenly, he didn't want to be a daredevil anymore. People started making fun of him. It's like, oh, that's ridiculous. You just need to try harder. You need to practice more. And he's like, folks, I came this close to dying. And suddenly his world was changed. I could watch that and say, you know what? I don't want to follow down that path. The guy gave a warning. I don't need to experience it to know it's dangerous. People that are investing into AI, people that are making all the garbage slop on social media and whatnot, they're not thinking of future consequences. They don't even think that they exist. But they do exist. And it doesn't take a lot of effort to realize that they do. But if you talk to them, they act as if there's nothing that could stop them. There's nothing that could go wrong other than, oh, it's just an inconvenience. When you mess up, you want other people to know your mistake so they don't make the same mistake. If you see fire, do you want to touch it? Do you see the hot coals and do you want to pick it up and just hold in your hands, maybe blow on a little bit, feel its warmth? You're going to lose your fingers doing that. I don't have to tell you that's dangerous. You know it because our culture knows it. And when you actually do it, if you do it, that's a sign. It's probably a sign you're an idiot. And I'm not. Understand what I'm saying here. If you see something dangerous and somebody warns you about it, you see somebody get hurt by it, and then you still want to go into it, that's stupidity. AI is dangerous. And we can't hide from that fact. It is already shown what it can do. It already has shown us that it is a force that, if misused, could cause a whole lot of pain to people. And some people are all for it. Such people do not know the consequences that are coming. They don't care. To them, it's all a giant game. How much can we play with the fire before we get hurt? That sort of thing. The next one is going to be doing a glass. Now, we've done cups before, but this is just going to be crystalline glass. Starting the 10-minute timer. I've mentioned him before, but there is a guy on YouTube who goes by the name Shadowversity. Shadow University, something like that. I've forgot. It's been a long time since I've done any communication with a guy or tried to do any communication with a guy. He is somebody who did a terrible thing to his wife. Terrible thing, using AI. Now, throughout history, there have been artists who fall in love with somebody so much that they start to, let's say they start to build idols of them. Because honestly, that is kind of what happens. All their artwork starts to revolve around this person. And they get they're everything from mild and just elegant to highly inappropriate. And if you look at old paintings done by some of the great masters of old, you'll notice this trend among a lot of them. Now, some people don't see any problem with it. I beg to differ. There's some very weird things that people will do with their artwork. And if it's of somebody that you care about, that's maybe one thing. But what Shadow did, which makes him so messed up, is he didn't just do this artwork of his wife. He then proceeded to publish it for the whole world to delight in. Now, this is so very, very messed up, because his wife probably thought, oh, this is nice. He actually finds me very special. He wants to kind of immortalize me with his artwork, not realizing that he was going on to the online community and teaching others how to make images of his wife. Start to notice the problem? It doesn't take a genius to realize, oh, you are messed up, buddy. But he was completely dense. He thought that somehow he was being a great artist by sharing his secret techniques for how to make AI images with his wife. But he put it all out there so people could start to do all their fantasies using the tool that he created. It's messed up, honestly. He should not have done what he did. But it's too late now, and he doesn't care. And I would dare say that all the good that he claimed to want to do in this world was nullified when he did that. I would hate to have to try and deal with the fallout of that, especially when you start seeing things appear online that you're like, wait a minute, why is my wife so distraught? Then you find out people were harassing with images that you helped them create. As people have said before, the internet will be the internet. And he will learn, if he hasn't learned already, he will learn that you don't trust the internet, especially when it comes to matters of family. Now, maybe he was in the clear. Maybe he was spared. I don't know. I stopped following the guy and haven't gone back since. But it is a concern. What do you do if people start to harass you with AI stuff? Well, you know, there are actually now laws that have been passed or are in the process of being passed to help protect people. So thankfully, people who make mistakes like that are not going to feel the ramifications of it, you could say. But it doesn't change the fact that they made the mistake and that they are responsible. In some way, shape, or form. A lot of people, including myself, warned him, and the comments were just filled up in his video, all saying, "What have you done?" Trying to warn him, you need to back off. This is not good. Do you realize what you have done? instead of acknowledging our concern, he went on to social media and said that he was trolled, and that basically he condemned everybody and pretended like somehow he had done nothing worthy of criticism. And he went on to several YouTube channels to try and tell people just how oppressed he had been, and how he's so tough because he's able to get the haters to hate, and he's not going to let it stop him. Something like that. Get out of here, Streambot. Beat it. We're going to extend this time out to another 5 minutes. Kind of see what this one looks like. There's been some celebrities who have been hit pretty hard by this AI stuff. Now they've, for the most part, they've kind of kept themselves above reproach. But I can tell there's a lot of people that are really starting to get nervous right now, especially with revenge stuff. Part of being, part of the world that we've lost is the need to be a good neighbor. This came to my mind recently, actually, because there's some folks that I know who, over time, the older they get, the more unfriendly they get. Now, other people are the exact opposite. The older they get, the kinder they get. And I think that's kind of the spirit being put on full display. The older you get, and the closer to heaven and hell that you start to become. Now, I know it's not a super popular subject for people to want to think about, but it is true that we have to consider the fact of we are showcasing our destination in the way we behave. Now, things can change, and we may be spared a lot of our mistakes, but it is something where we need to be careful, because you never know if your actions are actually putting on full display what is deep in your heart. Now, God can see that part on full display. He knows exactly what you're thinking. He knows exactly why you're thinking. The things that you do, But the question is, do we ourselves realize that? When we treat each other in a neighborly way, we are acknowledging that we need to be on good behavior around people. The internet does not favor that sort of mentality. And people love to think that somehow the internet doesn't really, well, shouldn't be censored in any way, shape, or form. And I know it's very popular to say, don't censor the internet. Oh, it's a slippery slope. But there are some things you have to censor, because some things go beyond what should be acceptable. And until you have been a victim of it, you don't really understand the importance. Now, if you think that, oh, well, I'll be in the clear because I'm going to be the big tough guy that can say, oh yeah, I can take it. These words have no power for me. Well, that means that somebody's not said the right words yet. Eventually, something is going to be said and you're going to snap. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen many, many times. I've told those stories before, so I won't bore you with telling the stories yet again. But I will say, just be wary. Be wary that your actions still have very deep consequences. And you may not fully understand it right now, but you will one day. You have to try and do what is right, regardless of what the world says. And one of those things that you can do to try and be above reproach is to control your tongue, to control your behavior. Because in the end, we are going to be held to account for the things we say and the things that we don't say. And that's something we don't think about a whole lot, that you could actually say things that you're going to not say things that you're going to be held to account for. But if you knew that, how would you change today? Well, on the internet, we kind of say, well, that's another thing. We don't care. Nobody cares, so why should I care? You should care because God cares. He wants us to be uplifting, to be encouraging, to be wise. You don't show wisdom when you condemn, when you criticize, when you try and tear people down. All right, let this one go on for too long. All right, we end it. There we go. Glass. Save. Go back to scene layout. Add in glass. I chalked that one up to telling stories. Not even very well either. My storytelling skills have not been very good as of the last couple of months. And I do apologize. My words are not nearly as refined as they have been in the past. And I think a lot of it has to do with the lack of practice on a weekly basis that I normally would have, but also the fact that times are changing. And I've been feeling it, and that is something where I know that some of my stories have suffered as a result. Right, there we go. Right, before we go to the next one, I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back in just a moment. My animation isn't set up right now, so can't go to the animation screen. So be back in about a minute. All right, I'm back. So neighborliness. Have you known somebody where you're like, you knew that they were like really kind-hearted and welcoming, and then they do something. Just a second. There we go. Okay. I need to get myself another clamp. So have you known somebody where you see them at one point, you're like, wow, they're very nice, very kind people. And then something happens, and suddenly that wall just disappears in a moment. Have you noticed there's like a time range on that? We can only put up a charade for so long. And I've noticed, personally, it's around a year or two. One to 2 years is what it takes, at least in my personal observations. You know how long YouTube channels and streaming channels tend to last? 1 to 2 years. The majority of channels I've been monitoring, they last for 1 to 2 years. When they get to the third year, everything crashes. There's a lot of reasons why, but I do notice one of the biggest issues is their personality starts to show. Who they really are starts to shine through. Maybe it's because they get careless. Maybe it's because they feel more comfortable. Maybe something happened that caused their wall to come crashing down. Or maybe it's that we are becoming more familiar with them because we're seeing them more. We can start to tell when something's off. If you know somebody very well, their voice will tell you if something is wrong. If you look in their face, you can tell that something is wrong. Try talking to somebody who is a family member, and one day they look at you and say, "What's wrong?" And you're like, "Nothing's wrong." And you didn't even realize that there was something wrong because your body was putting on was showing it to the point where everyone else knew in a moment because they have known you for so long, to the point where you yourself didn't even realize it until somebody said it. So again, what does that look like for a streamer? Doesn't look good, does it? Now, there are other factors that come into play. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but it's a very big reason. And some of the channels that I watched after I hit that 2-year marker, I can't watch it anymore. Because suddenly something happens, a personality gets shown, any number of things. If you can last past 2 years, chances are it will last even longer just because you got past that big hurdle. Relationships tend to have a huge bump in their marriage around the 1 to 2 year marker. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? All right, so next we got to do a sandwich. Now, I've never... one of the reasons why I'm doing food right now is because I'm actually really bad with doing food and drink, which is one of the reasons why I'm focusing on that. But it is an interesting... I forgot to set the timer for this one. Okay, reset that. Okay, we got to change that back to 15 minutes. There we go. Starting in 3, 2, 1, go. Got to get my reference image. You can force yourself to get past the 2-year marker. You really can. But there's a lot of people that the moment they hit that 2-year marker, they don't want to move on. And they don't want to press on to success. They want to quit. They say, nope, that's it, too hard. Time to back up. Time to focus on me. Time to focus on hobbies. Time to focus on anything else but trying to fix that which is broken. But if you can find a way to move on past the problems, past the frustration, you'll probably find yourself far happier than if you bail. Bailing on somebody is never a good option. Never a good option. And it is incredibly popular to bail on people. If you've noticed, I do not give any of the rhetoric that would encourage people to try and separate. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that I've realized that a lot of marriages could be fixed, and I want to see them fixed. But I know a whole lot of people that they don't want to see things fixed. In fact, some people actually want to benefit off of a marriage's collapse. Now, this is not going to be a marriage discussion, but I wanted to bring this up as a reminder that the way that we behave is something we can change. We can be able to say that, you know what, I'm not going to fall into this trap of letting my emotions destroy a relationship. Same thing if you're a streamer and you think that things are unfair or whatnot, you don't turn on people. You need to change yourself. You need to try and press on. And if people don't quite see a side of you that they like after 1 to 2 years, you know what? They will make a decision, but you yourself need to try and improve and try and do as much as you can to try and fix things. I've seen some streamers who do not care, and in fact they start to lash out, kind of like Shadowversity. need some textures for this. Uh-oh. Is it not working? Okay, so right now it is busted. I'm going to save the file and close it and reopen it. Something is amiss. Oh, it needed updating. Okay, we're pausing the timer for this. Kind of need this before we press on. It's thinking, so. Oh, there we go. Ah, come on. Okay, let's see here. I got no idea what that means. So I guess we're not using that. Yeah, that's a shame. All right, resume timer. I have to add more time for when things like this happen. Right, now we want All right, so that's good. By the way, folks, if you find anything of merit around here, I know it's not super exciting tonight, but if you find anything of merit, please consider liking or disliking as you see fit. My goal is not to try and sell you a fake persona. I want to try and offer you something as authentic, real, and hopefully a little interesting and slightly entertaining at times. But if it's not your preference, you're not going to see me, change that as time goes on. Now, it may not seem like it makes sense why I would even bring up the idea of authenticity and being genuine. But it's not just the streaming world that this is an issue. Now, there's another area that got me thinking about this from the beginning, basically. See, I saw a couple of people who were very, very, very depressed. And they all had a couple of main things in common. They were surrounded by people who were not authentic, who didn't care about them. And they're surrounded by people who assumed that they were naturally happy and that they were naturally well off. Never assume that somebody is really in a good spot. There could be things going on that you have no idea about. But also don't just naturally assume that everybody is depressed and broken. That can be also just as bad, honestly. In the end, be as authentic to those around you as you can be. Whether you're online, offline, in your neighborhood, with strangers, anywhere. Be authentic and try and help solve this problem of problems that we see in this world, especially on the online spaces. We're just gonna call it good, actually. Okay, so now next we have to do some meat here. I'm going back to muted because my brain's not firing on all cylinders tonight. All right, so another item has been fixed. For the table, we're going to be using the table I've used beforehand. I believe it's still in here. Yep, table. Have some consistency for these scenes. Next, we'll be working on the bird because the buildings in the background are not as crucial to the scene. reset the, we're going to be doing a count up rather than a timer. Stopwatch. And let's see here, go up to, actually we're going to be building it in here. So let's create new folder. Have a good evening there, Bastion. Rest well. See you next time, whenever that is. Hope tomorrow goes well. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, I probably need to break from the plan a little bit here and call it for the evening. Not really something I want to do, but it's been a little hard to focus. I need to probably attack this when I'm of a sharper mind. You can probably tell I've not been quite there. This is one of the reasons why I've been wanting to go to earlier hours, because my evening abilities to think and process has been disappearing with the earlier hours I've been doing. So anyway, that's something that will definitely be focus moving forward, trying to make sure that they are earlier. But yeah, I think that right now, I don't think I'll be doing anything tomorrow. Maybe we'll finish this on Monday. That would probably actually work quite well. Because I will also go in with the anniversary stream, which, again, it's not going to be the actual anniversary stream, but it'll be like the preliminary thing. Man, it's so... I gotta say, it is very frustrating when you have like visions of what you would like to try and accomplish, and then you realize, they're not really going to happen. That's part of living life, is that you have to be able to realize that a lot of things that you have planned are never going to pan out. And you can try and fight it as much as you can. It ain't gonna change things. Your lot is chosen beforehand. And the one thing you do have to make decisions for is whether or not you're going to fight it, especially when you're not prepared. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Right now it feels more like it doesn't work out. So anyway, this project will continue next time, in which we'll actually put some motion to the duck and we'll do better at recording it. Anyway, we're going to end it there. And if anybody's out there lurking right now and you know some of the projects that are going on, or at least are aware of them, let's say one project, the project from last year, this is the one tease I'll give as we close things out. It's long. Way longer than I was planning. It is now to actually go through the content. We're talking hours to go through it. I'm a bad streamer. I know that. I'm very bad at making YouTube videos. I know that. This project breaks from that. And it is almost done. Anyway, when we come to the end of the big push at work, I'll show you guys what it is. And then after that, based upon how it's received, I will readjust how these streams and how the projects go moving forward. If it takes off, and that's a big if, will become a primary focus of mine. If it doesn't do well, it was worth the chance to try and see if it would work. My apologies for the simplicity of this evening and for not being completely in my best of presentations, you could say. I'll try and get some more rest and be better prepared for next time. Until next time, folks, have a very pleasant evening and morning, everybody. Be civil to one another. We'll see you next time, whenever that is. Hopefully you found something of merit, even if it was a little. Until next time, folks, have a very pleasant evening. And look out for those in your neck of the woods. Be civil to them, and be a neighbor to them.